Invincible has one of the most stacked villain rosters in all of comics, from crime bosses and interdimensional psychopaths to ancient alien warlords who fight inside the sun. So today, I'm breaking down every major villain in the series, what makes them dangerous, and why each one matters to Mark's story, starting with the one who's basically a tutorial boss, Machine Head. Machine Head is a cybernetic crime lord with cognitive abilities superior to the fastest computers on the planet. He used that intellect to build the greatest criminal empire across the United States through bribery, intimidation, and legitimate business fronts that made his operation nearly untouchable. On paper, this guy sounds terrifying, but here's the thing. Machine Head doesn't fight, like at all. His entire strategy revolves around hiring people who are significantly more dangerous than he is. When Invincible comes knocking, Machine Head throws Battle Beast and a squad of hired villains at him instead of lifting a single cybernetic finger. Hey, could you guys go handle the invulnerable teenager for me? I'll be in the back. He also operates as part of the Order, an international secret society of supervillain crime bosses who control the underworlds of multiple nations. This isn't some street-level thug. This is a man embedded in the global infrastructure of organized crime. And yet, his downfall doesn't come from Mark. It comes from his own enforcer, Titan. The guy Machine Head had been squeezing for years just decides he's had enough, betrays his boss, and takes over everything. A genius-level intellect with computing power beyond anything on Earth, undone by the most basic human motivation imaginable. An employee who wanted a better deal. I don't know what to tell you. For Mark, Machine Head represents his first real encounter with organized crime, and the frustrating reality that not every villain can be punched into submission. He walks away thinking the superhero thing is pretty straightforward. Beat the bad guy, save the day, go home. But if you think the villains stay this manageable, wait until you meet the two guys who can't even agree on which one of them is real. The Mauler twins. Here's a fun existential nightmare for you. Imagine waking up every single day not knowing if you're the original version of yourself or a copy. That's the entire existence of the Mauler twins, who aren't actually twins at all. They're clones, created by a scientist named Mauler, with each cloning process ending in a complete mind wipe so that neither the clone nor the creator knows which one is the original. The result? Two massive blue-skinned geniuses who spend half their time building world-ending technology and the other half screaming at each other about who's real, which is, not ideal. But here's the thing. The identity crisis, while philosophically horrifying, is actually the least important thing about them. The Mauler twins are essentially the arms dealers of the Invincible universe. Their genius spans multiple scientific fields, and they invented both their own cloning methodology and a memory duplication device capable of copying an entire consciousness into a new body. That second invention is the one that matters. See, the Maulers aren't dangerous because of what they do. Bullets and explosions feel like a light tingle to these guys, and they could bench press a building if they felt like it, but their real threat is what they enable. Their memory device is the exact technology that Angstrom Levy uses to absorb the memories of multiple alternate versions of himself. The process completely overloads his mind, turning a genuine pacifist into one of the most dangerous psychopaths Mark Grayson will ever face. Without the Maulers, Angstrom Levy stays a nice guy with interdimensional powers. With them, he becomes a catastrophe. Their story doesn't end cleanly, either. Oliver Grayson eventually catches both Maulers in a nuclear missile silo and kills them with the brutality you'd expect from Nolan's other son. But because these are the Mauler twins, one of them had a backup clone ready to go, because of course he did. That surviving Mauler actually ends up cooperating with Mark to create a cloned body for Rudolph Connors, proving that even the most morally questionable scientists in the universe can be useful when you need a favor. But if you think a couple of genius clones with an identity crisis are scary, wait until you meet someone who fights purely because he enjoys it. Battle Beast. Most villains want something: power, revenge, control, money. Battle Beast wants exactly one thing: to get hit really, really hard by someone who can actually make it count. And that distinction makes him one of the most terrifying characters in the entire series. His real name is Thok, and he comes from a war-torn world called Dorn. Here's the thing though, he wasn't always a wandering psychopath looking for a good time. He was actually his planet's guardian, the guy who ended Dorn's wars. But all that constant fighting developed an addiction so deep that once his world ran out of worthy opponents, he just left, abandoned his entire civilization, and went looking for someone in the universe who could give him a real fight, which is, not ideal for the people of Dornet. Physically, the guy is a nightmare. Superhuman strength that exceeds most Viltrumites. A massive mace he swings with devastating speed. He can survive extended periods in open space without any protection. He's basically a lion the size of a truck who decided that conquering 1,000 worlds wasn't enough cardio. But what makes Battle Beast truly unique is his code of honor. He refuses to kill opponents he considers unworthy. When he shows up during Mark's fight with Machine Head's hired muscle, he doesn't just beat the heroes. He dismisses them, says they're not worth killing. Then he just leaves. That's not a villain moment. That's a reality check. Mark gets told to his face that he doesn't even register on the power scale. No monologue, no grudge. Just Just, you're beneath me and a door slam. His death, though, that's where Battle Beast becomes legendary. He fights Thrag for 3 continuous days across planetary surfaces. When Thrag gets disemboweled during the fight, Battle Beast guts his own abdomen to match, refuses to accept any advantage. You lost your intestines? Cool, let me even that up real quick. Thrag ultimately rips out and crushes Battle Beast's heart. And Battle Beast's response? He thanks him. Thanks the guy who just killed him for giving him a warrior's death. Thrag takes his hide afterward and turns it into a cape, a trophy from the only opponent who ever pushed him that far. But if you think getting dismissed as unworthy is a rough day, wait until you meet the guy who blames Mark for ruining his life across infinite dimensions, Angstrom Levy. Every villain on this list chose to be evil. Angstrom Levy didn't. He was made into a monster by the one person trying to save him, and that's what makes him the most tragic antagonist in the entire series. Here's the thing. Before the accident, Levy was genuinely a good person, a pacifist with the ability to open portals between dimensions. He wanted to gather knowledge from alternate versions of himself across the multiverse, pooling their collective intelligence to help his reality. No conquest, no domination, just a scientist trying to make things better. Then Mark showed up. When the Mahler twins were transferring memories from Levy's alternate selves into his brain, Invincible burst in to stop what he thought was a hostage situation. The resulting fight caused an explosion that disfigured Levy beyond recognition and overloaded his mind with thousands of lifetimes crammed into a single skull with zero filtering. And here's where it gets genuinely dark. Levy's fractured brain rewrote the memory. In his version of events, Mark caused the explosion on purpose. He doesn't remember a hero trying to save him. He remembers a villain destroying his life. Mark was the one person in that room actually looking out for him, and Levy's broken mind turned that into the foundation of an obsession. What follows is one of the most personal revenge campaigns in the series. Levy abducts Mark's mother Debbie and his baby brother Oliver, teleporting Mark through alternate realities, including trips through the Marvel and DC universes just to keep him helpless. While Mark is gone, Levy breaks Debbie's arms after she tries to hit him with a lamp, which is, not ideal, but the real masterpiece of cruelty is the Invincible War. Levy gathers evil versions of Mark from across the multiverse and unleashes them all on Earth at once. Massive casualties. And the entire point isn't conquest. It's to prove that Invincible, across infinite realities, is a villain. He's attacking Mark's identity at the molecular level, forcing him to watch 1,000 versions of himself destroy everything he's sworn to protect. And buried somewhere inside that shattered consciousness, the original Angstrom is still in there, still fighting to remember who he was, before 1,000 screaming alternate selves drowned him out. But the hatred wins. It always wins. Levy is the villain Mark accidentally created. A good man destroyed by the hero trying to save him, then consumed by a chorus of rage that wasn't even his. But if you think psychological warfare is the worst thing Mark has to face, wait until the Viltrum Empire sends their most brutal soldier to finish what Omni-Man started: conquest. Every villain Mark fights before this point lets him walk away with a lesson. Conquest lets him walk away with a body bag. Here's the thing about Conquest. He's not angry at Mark. He doesn't have a tragic backstory that connects them. He doesn't monologue about betrayal or revenge or any of that. He's just an ancient Viltrumite war machine, thousands of years old, who has never failed a single mission in his entire life. He's conquered countless planets single-handedly, and now he's been sent to Earth to finish what Omni-Man started. That's it. That's his whole deal. He showed up because Mark said no to the Viltrumite Empire, and the Empire doesn't accept no, and he is, by every measurable standard, the second most powerful Viltrumite in recorded history. Only Thrag sits above him. Cecil Stedman literally says Conquest is the strongest Viltrumite they've ever encountered, which means Cecil thinks this guy could beat Omni-Man. Let that sink in for a second. Mark's dad, the guy who soloed the entire Guardians of the Globe, might lose to this one-armed, one-eyed old man with a mustache. The first fight isn't even competitive. Conquest repeatedly overpowers Mark, slaps Kid Omni-Man unconscious with a single hit, levels part of a city by flying directly into Invincible like a cruise missile, and then kills Adam Eve, punches straight through her stomach. She's gone, and Mark is getting dismantled by a guy who's treating the whole thing like light cardio. But Mark doesn't quit, which is, kind of his whole thing. Adam Eve's powers bring her back just long enough to unleash a fully charged energy blast that burns most of Conquest's skin clean off, and in that window, Mark does what Mark does. He headbutts Conquest over and over, breaking the old warrior down piece by piece, and then chokes him to death with his bare hands. He wins, but winning Winning is a generous word here. Mark is left so catastrophically injured he needs extended recovery just to function again. Eve died, even if temporarily. A chunk of the city is rubble. The strongest Viltrumite Earth had ever seen is dead on the ground, and the guy who killed him is barely alive next to the corpse. This is the fight where Mark stops being a kid playing hero. Every battle before Conquest had stakes, sure, but they also had margins. Room to lose and survive, room to get saved. Conquest erased those margins entirely. He proved that the cost of being invincible isn't bruises and property damage. It's watching the person you love get a fist through their body. It's killing someone with your bare hands because there is literally no other option. It's lying in a hospital bed afterward wondering if the next one will be worse, and it will be. Because if you think an ancient war machine is terrifying, wait until Mark teams up with a villain who thinks destroying civilization is actually the morally correct thing to do. Dinosaurus. Most villains in Invincible betray Mark through deception. Dinosaurus is different. Mark chose to trust him. He walked into this one with his eyes open, and that's exactly why it hurts more than Conquest ever could. Dinosaurus is the split personality of a human scientist named David Anders. David isn't evil. He's a quiet, intelligent man trapped inside a body that transforms involuntarily whenever he experiences boredom or apathy. When that transformation happens, David disappears. What emerges is a muscular, red-skinned creature with claws, regenerative healing, superhuman strength, and a genius-level brain. Think of it as a Hulk situation, except instead of rage, the trigger is apathy, which is, not ideal. But here's the thing, Dinosaurus isn't mindless. His entire philosophy boils down to cold utilitarian math. Millions must die now, so that billions can survive later. He genuinely believes this. He ran the numbers and decided Las Vegas needed to stop existing, so he planted a bomb to destroy it. Mark disabled the bomb before it went off, but Dinosaurus wasn't bluffing. He was fully prepared to wipe an entire city off the map, and Mark somehow looks at this creature and sees potential. The two form an actual partnership. Mark believes Dinosaurus wants to help humanity, that his methods are extreme, but his heart is in the right place. It's the most dangerous assumption Mark makes in the entire series, because the man and the monster share the same brain, and Mark keeps betting on the man while ignoring what the monster is building. That bet collapses when Mark discovers the full scale of the plan. Dinosaurus is planting bombs in the Arctic, designed to melt enough ice to flood every major coastal city on the planet, billions of people underwater. And Dinosaurus frames it the same way he frames everything: necessary sacrifice. It's me, the giant dinosaur man. Listen, I know drowning a few billion people sounds bad, but have you considered the math? This is a villain you cannot punch into submission. He challenges Mark's core belief that good intentions paired with enough intelligence don't justify horrific actions. Because Dinosaurus has good intentions. That's the nightmare. He's not wrong about every problem he identifies. He's catastrophically wrong about the solutions. The ending is what separates this from every other villain arc. David Anders, the human underneath, eventually sees through the twisted logic. Mark helps him understand that no amount of mathematical justification makes genocide acceptable, and David listens. Then he asks Mark to kill him, not because he's been defeated, because David Anders is terrified that Dinosaurus will overwhelm his consciousness permanently, that the man will vanish, and only the monster will remain. He makes this request calmly, clearly, fully aware of what he's asking. No epic battle, no dramatic last stand, just a man who became a monster asking his friend to make sure it never happens again. But if Dinosaurus represents the villain Mark chose to trust, the next entry represents something far worse. The villain Mark never had a choice about at all: Omni-Man. Every villain on this list challenged what Mark can do. Nolan Grayson challenged who Mark is. He was sent to Earth by the Viltrum Empire with one job: prepare the planet for conquest, but Nolan didn't show up guns blazing. He did something way smarter. He became Earth's greatest superhero. He married a human woman. He had a son. He built an entire life that, from the outside, looked like the American dream, and all of it was emotional cover for his mission. Here's where it gets dark. When the time came to remove the biggest obstacle to Viltrumite invasion, Nolan walked into a room with 7 of Earth's strongest heroes and murdered every single one of them. The Guardians of the Globe wiped out in a 1 versus 7 massacre through pure brute force. He barely survived it himself, collapsing in exhaustion among the bodies of people who trusted him completely. But he did survive, and in his mind, he was being merciful. His logic was simple. If the Viltrumites arrived and found organized resistance, the destruction would be infinitely worse. Kill 7 now. save millions later. That's the fascistic philosophy baked into every Viltrumite who ever lived. Weaker species don't matter morally. Their lives are a rounding error in the math of empire. Nolan believed this the way you believe gravity works. It wasn't cruelty to him, it was just reality. But then his son opened his mouth. The scene where Mark, beaten half to death, tells his father that after living thousands of years, he'll still have his dad, is the emotional core of the entire series. One sentence. That's all it took to shatter decades of Viltrumite conditioning. Nolan's resolve crumbles in real time. He flies into space crying, abandoning his mission, his empire, and everything he was raised to believe, because his teenage son reminded him that family is permanent and empires aren't. And that should be the happy ending, right? Dad sees the light, everyone moves on, except Nolan killed thousands of innocent people, not just the Guardians. Thousands died in his battles with Mark alone. His reformation doesn't undo a single body. His tears don't rebuild a single building, and the justification he carried for all of it, that conquest saves lives, is the exact same logic every fascist regime in history has used to justify atrocity. The weak don't count, which is, not ideal. What makes Omni-Man permanently unsettling isn't what he did, it's that you genuinely can't tell if he's done doing it. Some theories suggest his apparent change of heart might be a longer game, a strategy to build an army of half Viltrumites through Mark and others, rather than conquering Earth outright. His true alignment stays perpetually ambiguous, because every act of love could also be an act of manipulation. Every sacrifice could be an investment. Like every other villain on this list is, someone Mark fights. Nolan is someone Mark has to decide whether to forgive, and that's a fight no amount of Viltrumite strength can win. But Nolan isn't even the most dangerous Viltrumite Mark will face. That title belongs to someone far worse, someone who makes Omni-Man look like a warm-up round. Thrag. Every villain on this list broke Mark in some way. His trust, his body, his belief in what heroism even means. But every single one of them exists because of the system that created Omni-Man, the ideology, the empire, the genetic supremacy. And at the top of that entire system, sitting on a throne built from millennia of blood, is Thrag. The Grand Regent of the Viltrum Empire is the most powerful Viltrumite in recorded history. That's not a title he inherited. He earned it by being so overwhelmingly strong that weaker opponents literally injure themselves hitting him. His durability is so extreme that fighting him is less like combat and more like punching a mountain and hoping the mountain gets tired. It won't. He has thousands of years of combat mastery baked into his muscle memory, and he has never once lost a fight he intended to win. Battle Beast, the greatest warrior in the known universe outside the Viltrumite species, fought Thrag for multiple days straight across planetary surfaces. Thrag ripped his heart out and wore his hide as a cape. Conquest, the second strongest Viltrumite alive, gets one-sided every single time they clash. Other Viltrumites don't respect Thrag. They fear him. There's a difference, and Thrag prefers it that way. But here's where it gets personal. Mark's grandfather Argyle and the betrayals committed by the Grayson bloodline against Thrag's authority turned this from a political conflict into something deeply, irreversibly personal. Thrag doesn't just want Mark dead. He wants the bloodline erased. The final battle is the most visceral sequence in the entire series. Thrag impales Omni-Man, then he turns to Mark. And while fighting inside the sun itself, both of them literally burning alive, Thrag uses his own children as projectiles. Their bodies splatter against Mark because they're too weak to survive the force of their father's throws. He weaponizes his own kids, which is, not ideal. Both combatants are disintegrating. Mark's arms are broken. Thrag should win this. By every measurable metric, he should win this. But Mark doesn't need his arms. He bites through Thrag's throat and rips it out with his teeth. No powers, no strategy. Just a kid who absolutely refuses to die, proving one final time that the Viltrumite obsession with pure strength was always the wrong metric. Alan the alien carries Mark out of the sun. Thrag's corpse burns behind them, consumed by the star, and with it burns the last remnant of everything the Viltrum Empire used to be. The ideology, the fear, the genetic purity doctrine that ruined entire civilizations. With Thrag gone, the Viltrumites are finally free. Not conquered, not defeated. Freed. Mark's family leads them towards something better, proving that defeating the final boss didn't just save one hero. It redeemed an entire species. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more, click the video on the screen now.